Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate. Does India's performance in the Champions Trophy suggest that Indian cricket faces bigger problems? That's the key issue I shall discuss today with the man they consider India's greatest living former cricket test captain, Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi. Tiger Pataudi, let's start with India's performance in the Champions Trophy. MS Dhoni has gone on record to say, it's a little difficult for me to say whether the performance was bad. What's your opinion of India's performance?
No, it was bad in the sense that we'd done well in Sri Lanka, but I think we should remember that the Sri Lankan wicket suited us. Also that it was the spinners who got the wickets in Sri Lanka, and they won't get wickets in South Africa.
So as regards the performance in South Africa, you have no doubt in saying that it was bad?
Well, I say it's bad because in the sense that your bowlers didn't do well because they weren't in a position or fit enough to do well, not necessarily physically, but you know, as bowlers, because the wickets didn't suit them.
Let's begin by taking up the issue of fitness. Sehwag, Zaheer Khan, Yuvraj weren't fit enough to play, Sachin wasn't fit enough to bowl, Gambhir wasn't able to play in all the practice matches. Would you say that fitness was a serious problem for the Indian team?
Well, that is a problem. I think you have to study it because a lot of cricketers, I should say a majority of cricketers, are not physically, shall I say, agile or physically athletic. If you go back even, let's say, 50 years from Vijay Merchant through Gavaskar to even Sachin and Rahul Dravid, you wouldn't say that they run 100 yards in reasonably quick time. And there are very few Indian players who one would say, well, you know, full of agility and movement, quick movement in the field, and the catching has been poor. Now, there are several reasons for this. Basically, that when we learn our cricket at the age of 16 and so on, the facilities are not really that good.
There are obviously reasons why Indian fitness isn't good. Would you also go that one step further and say that fitness was the real reason why India's fielding was so poor in South Africa, perhaps in particular in the game against Pakistan?
No, I don't think it's in a particular game. Throughout the history of Indian cricket, fielding has been very, very poor. And that is because people don't have the grounds to learn fielding on. We don't know how to dive, we don't know how to slide, because we don't have grounds that we can slide on.
Fitness is the Achilles heel of Indian cricket?
I would say fitness and to some extent commitment.
To some extent commitment as well?
Yes.
On that point then, would you say that in the Champions Trophy matches that we've just seen, that there was an issue about India's commitment or temperament and attitude? Because I noticed that Wasim Akram has gone on record to say, it's the first time I've seen the Indian body language wasn't there.
Well, this is not correct because it happened before. I mean, there are several occasions when I've noticed, even when I was playing, that our body language wasn't as aggressive or perhaps as positive as it should have been. So it's a bane of Indian cricket for a long, long time.
So like fitness, which has been a bane of Indian cricket, commitment has been a question mark against Indian cricketers for a long time?
Well, certainly some cricketers, yes.
You know, you mentioned commitment. I noticed something, that both Yuvraj Singh and Yunus Khan broke fingers on their right hands during practice matches. But whereas Yuvraj didn't play at all and left for India, Yunus Khan missed one game, but was there on the field against India despite whatever pain he felt. Was commitment a factor in that?
Well, actually it depends on how badly it was broken. I mean, one doesn't know. I mean, there was an occasion when the Australian off-spinner recently in a test match dislocated a finger, but he didn't go, I mean, he bowled immediately and batted very soon. So I don't think it's a question of commitment as much as it's a question of how actually badly the injury is.
Let's come to the point you made a moment ago about India's bowling. Many people feel that India's bowlers simply weren't up to the challenges they were facing in South Africa. In your opinion, how bad or how poor was India's bowling?
I think it was poor in the sense that we can't really expect to win 50-50s in these conditions if our bowling is going to bowl like this. As I said, we got away with it in Sri Lanka because the wicket suited the spinners. Here, they were a bit more sort of helpful to seam, and we just haven't got the seam bowling, or at least the seam bowling is not fit to bowl well enough, and the spinners can't do the job in South Africa.
In fact, you talk about seam bowling, once again I noticed that Wasim Akram has gone on record to say that India's fast bowlers are actually slowing down. Would you agree?
Well, of course, yes. I mean, I don't think they were fast to begin with. I mean, I consider fast the late 80s and very early 90s, but these guys are bowling at sort of late 70s and very early 80s. Kilometers per hour, or miles per hour, I'm not sure. But they're not fast. At best, they'd be called medium fast.
Why aren't we throwing up good quality fast bowlers? Is it because fast bowling is not part of the Indian temperament or the genetic makeup, or is it because we don't have the training, or is it something to do with commitment again?
No, I think it's more to do with the first three you mentioned, including, of course, the most important is the wickets, because they don't suit fast bowling. And I think Indians are reasonably intelligent people. They don't see why they should flog away on wickets that actually are not going to help them. So most of them become batsmen or spinners.
In other words, we take, in a sense, the easy option. They don't want to flog away on wickets that won't help them. Is that what you mean?
No, I don't mean that. What I mean is that I think that if India wants to produce fast bowlers, I think it's the responsibility of the BCCI to produce the kind of wickets that would encourage people to bowl fast.
So here the fault lies with cricket management?
Well, to some extent, yes, but not necessarily BCCI, but also the local associations.
To come back to the Champions Trophy, Dhoni faced a lot of criticism for the bowling changes. For instance, during the Pakistan game, when the score stood at 3 for 65 and Pakistan was clearly under pressure, Nehra was taking wickets, he was suddenly taken off, although he'd only bowled 4 overs at that point, and 2 part-timers brought in. Dhoni was widely criticized. Would you agree?
Well, I have no choice but to agree. But the fact that Dhoni did this, you know, it wasn't really the reason why we didn't do well in South Africa. There are deeper reasons for this. A captain takes a decision, it can go right or wrong. And it's easy for us to sit back after the match and criticize, but that is not the reason why we did badly in South Africa.
I want very much to come to the deeper reasons why we did badly in South Africa. But one other point that was made against Dhoni was that he didn't bring Harbhajan on earlier than the 26th over. Now, Shoaib Malik, the Pakistan captain, went on record to say that if Harbhajan had begun to bowl at 3 for 65 and taken a wicket, Pakistan would have been under serious pressure. Do you think that was a wrong judgment called by Dhoni?
As it turned out, probably, because I don't think here Shoaib Malik is sort of, you know, being one up or, you know, in that sense. But I think he's right that they would have been under pressure because Harbhajan was bowling well. But again, it's a decision left to the captain, and, you know, in a 50-50, there's really not much time to make up your mind.
In the past, Dhoni's got a lot of praise for his captaincy.
Yes.
This time round in the Champions Trophy, were you a little disappointed with him?
No, I think that people, especially the media, tend to overpraise far too quickly. And then, of course, they have to bring them down. So no, I have not been disappointed in Dhoni's captain. I think he's still a good captain. I think he'll become a better captain.
But are there a few learning lessons for him to pick up from this?
Oh, throughout. One learns throughout, yes.
And he needs to learn from this experience in particular?
Yes, he has to learn, because every experience teaches you something.
Let's take a break at that point, M A K Pataudi. I want to come back in part 2 and talk about the issue that you mentioned. What are the bigger problems that face Indian cricket? That's in a moment's time. See you after the break. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate and an interview with Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi. Tiger Pataudi, many people ask if beyond fitness bowling, there are in fact bigger problems that face Indian cricket. What's your answer?
No, I think what we're not doing actually is that we're not concentrating enough on junior cricket, because that is where cricketers are made. There's no point in coming into test cricket at the age of 21, 22, with still having your basic fundamentals wrong. You know, fundamentals like running between wickets or calling or keeping your eye on the ball when you're fielding, or even throwing at the right end. And so unless we get those right before we enter, it's very difficult for the international coach to start you on the fundamentals. This is a waste of time. So we have to organize our coaching and our facilities much better at, let's say, the level of 16 and perhaps even slightly earlier.
But you're saying something very critical. You're saying that people who become national level cricketers at 21 have actually got fundamentals like running between the wickets or throwing at the wicket. They're still not capable of doing that adequately.
I'm saying exactly that in a scramble, instead of keeping their cool, keeping their eye on the ball, you'll see a lot of Indian cricketers getting a little bit flustered and often throwing at the wrong end. They run badly between wickets. Sometimes they take their eyes off the ball. These are very basic things which one is supposed to know before you enter the international field.
Which also suggests, does it not, that the people who become international level cricketers for India are in a sense half or three-quarter baked. They haven't got all their talents and all their skills there with them.
Absolutely. And this is the fault not only of the cricketers but also of the coaches.
Which means they're actually not ready to be international level cricketers when they become that.
Well, in a way, certainly, yes.
What about something else? People say that, for instance, T20 and the attitude and the temperament that it requires has militated against India's ability to play the longer 50-over one-day game.
No, I don't think this is quite correct. I mean, it is obviously difficult to adjust to 3 forms of cricket, by the same player. Very few people can actually do it, but they have to do it. And I think India has done well in all aspects of these 3 games at times, but not consistently enough to be thought of as a #1 position.
Is that absence of consistency due to commitment or fitness or both?
I think it's training, it's mental training. The training that you should be totally committed 100% throughout that 365 days in the year, and that you have nothing else to do. I mean, this is the way professional cricket is now played. And the fact that you should get to the top, and you must get to the top, and that's the whole idea of playing.
Why is that mental training lacking? Is it something to do with individual players, or is it to do with the system?
No, I think it's a lot to do with outside pressure, especially media pressure, media sort of visibility, all kinds of other temptations. Some of them are not that bad, being put in the... And when a player is not used to it, shall I say, especially money, fame, money when you're very young and you're from a reasonably humble background, you suddenly end up with lots and lots of money. How do you deal with that kind of situation? It's not easy for a young Indian cricketer.
Let's explore that directly. Would you say that the performance of Indian cricketers has been affected by the country's obsession with cricket, which results in every cricketer being treated as a celebrity and becoming pretty quickly a crorepati? Has that affected their performance?
I think it's bound to. I think it's bound to affect their concentration because they're a little frustrated. They don't know what to do with the kind of attention and the kind of the fame and the fortune that they have suddenly gathered in a space of very short time, especially when they're not used to it.
When they make money easily and when they get treated as celebrities or superstars, does it affect their ambition and their fire to play well? Because somehow they then don't need to do so. They've already achieved what they wanted to achieve.
Well, it depends on the individual. I mean, you take the example of Sachin Tendulkar or Rahul Dravid. I mean, they remain just as, or Kumble, remain just as committed when they first started as when they ended. But there are 1 or 2 players whom I don't wish to mention who have been affected and have lost out because of their lack of ability to adjust to this new fame and fortune.
Sachin and Rahul Dravid are clearly amongst the toughest mentally in the Indian team, and their commitment is without doubt. But others who perhaps lack that toughness, who lack that dedication and sense of perseverance, wilt under the celebrity status and get distracted or tempted.
Well, they certainly get confused, I think, yes. And that affects their cricket.
Does the easy money that cricketers make through commercial contracts, and now in particular through IPL, also affect their attitude?
No, I think it certainly distracts them a lot, many of them. And therefore they're not committed, let's say, as much as they should be, to the extent they should be, because as I said, cricket is now played throughout 365 days.
Let me give you an example that the press picked up in April this year. Were Harbhajan Singh and Dhoni justified in not going to Rashtrapati Bhavan to receive their Padma awards, or was that a disrespect and discourtesy to the president, which perhaps reflects that their celebrity status made them think that somehow they could behave differently to other awardees?
Well, that's difficult for me to answer because I'm not sure whether they got enough time to go. I mean, often you're invited to these things right at the last minute.
But they would have got enough warning similar to that of everyone else getting the award.
Well, if they got enough warning, then I think it was ill-mannered not to go.
If they got enough warning, it was ill-mannered not to go.
Yes.
What is your understanding and your opinion of the Indian cricket team's collective refusal to accept the WADA testing stipulations? And bear in mind that the Indian cricket team has taken the strongest stand on this issue. No other cricket team has taken a similar stand.
Well, a lot of other cricketers have not accepted it really. They've had to accept it and they have not been able to refuse. But the Indian team's objections are, I think, in some place correct, because why should somebody be, come to you at any time that they like and ask you to do something which perhaps, it's not...
If a Rafael Nadal or a Roger Federer or even a Saina Nehra can accept, why not Indian cricketers? Why should they be thought of as separate and different?
Well, I think, the objection also came from the security that they get. Often they get state security, and these guys were saying that, there's no reason why they should inform where they are 24 hours, because it becomes more difficult for us to give them security.
So you don't think that this is a reflection of Indian cricketers beginning to believe that they are special and different and needed to be treated specially and differently?
Well, I hope not, because they shouldn't be, frankly.
They should be.
No, not at all.
So when people turn around and say that even young cricketers, those who are literally at the start of their cricketing career, have begun to have an excessive estimation of their self-worth, would you agree?
No, I think you have to take the individual separately. I think some do, some don't. I also believe, that when we were talking about it earlier, about earning fame and fortune early, quickly, that the BCCI should also look at this angle and have a kind of symposium or teach people, how to deal with this kind of fame and fortune, which obviously has come as a reasonable surprise to them.
In addition to BCCI stepping in and guiding and teaching them, do you think there's also a need perhaps to not pay so much for IPL, not pay so much for commercial contracts, because you are tempting young people who may not be used to this lifestyle into distraction?
No, I don't think we can actually be judged of that. I think the amount of money they make, they should be allowed to make as much as they like, but they should also be guided.
And that's the role of BCCI?
That's the role, but if the parent can't do it or the school can't do it, then the BCCI will have to do it.
Would you then, stepping back, accept that money, in a sense, is beginning to spoil some Indian cricketers?
No, I think fame, where there was no money, also spoiled Indian cricketers. But obviously the temptations are much more now than they were in my time.
And the combination of money and fame, particularly when it comes easily and particularly when it comes very early, can be very dangerous.
Well, it's very difficult to deal with for most people.
As another corrective, you talked about the BCCI stepping in and guiding and training. Do you think the performance and attitude of Indian cricketers would improve if the Indian people paid just a little less attention to them?
I suspect so, yes. I imagine so, yes.
So in other words, there's also a message here to the Indian public: don't be quite so adoring, you could end up spoiling the product you adore.
Yes, and don't be quite so adoring quite so quickly. And the media also.
In fact, on the media, how much of the blame for spoiling the attitude of Indian cricketers lies with newspapers and perhaps TV in particular? Remember, TV frequently refers to them as princes, nawabs, sultans and little masters. Has this romantic indulgence gone to their head?
Well, I'm not going to blame extraneous reasons for this. I think that the person involved has to sort it out himself. It doesn't matter how much pressure he's under.
But does TV need to be a bit more thoughtful, a bit more careful about the language and in particular the adjectives it uses, the terms it devises to describe them?
I think that the electronic media has to be, yes, certainly, but not only in cricket, but in several other means also.
And should the electronic media also be a bit more supportive of non-cricket sport so that cricket itself doesn't be made to feel as if it's special and unique?
Well, I would like to see it, certainly, because there's a lot of talent in lots of other sports in India, and we'd like to see that developed also, otherwise it becomes totally lopsided.
So in addition to the message you're sending out to cricketers themselves and to BCCI, there's also a message to the media: be more discriminating and stop romanticizing cricketers, because you could end up spoiling young cricket players before they've really fully achieved their potential.
Well, certainly to the general public, but not to the BCCI. The BCCI does not romanticize cricketers. But to BCCI, you're saying, step in and help guide. Yes, that's right. Yes. Play a father figure role. Yes, you're supposed to run cricket. Tiger Pataudi, a pleasure talking to you.